Hi guys, today I'm going to be teaching you all about the stippling technique. What is stippling? So stippling involves placing individual dots across a surface in a pattern that you'll be able to look at from a distance and recognize as an image. Usually the further away you are, the more your mind is forced to fill in the gaps on its own. For example, instead of drawing a circle, you'll make this shape with tiny dots. We've done it a little bit before with Van Gogh's Starry Night. We used lines instead of dots, but in this one we'll be using dots. And it gives it depth, so it makes it look 3D rather than a flat object. So here are some examples. We've got here, they're dots. You have got some crosses here as well and a few lines, and you can see it's kind of about the density of the dots, how close they are together and how big the dots are as well. And you can see all different examples. This is what we're going to be looking at today in more depth, so I will show that to you. You can also do entire pictures using stippling. So here obviously we've got an apple, we've got a mountain range, you've got a shell here, and you've got a mountain here, and you can see the closer the dots are together, the darker it looks. So you can use it for shading. Here on the apple, you've got lots of different shading around. This one's a bit more simple, and you've just got the shading around the lines of the shell and then the inside of it. So we're going to have a go. What you will need is a pencil, a felt tip or fine liner pen, which is what you're going to use to do the stippling or the dots, and then something circular to draw around. I used a compass to draw this circle, but you can get something circular to draw around. If you don't have that, just draw the best circle that you can. And then now I'm going to talk you through all of the different steps. I'm going to tell you when to pause the video. We'll pause it after each different set of steps. But if you need to pause it and rewind, that's absolutely fine, no problem. So the first step is you draw your circle. So pause the video, give yourself some time to draw that with a pencil, and then now get your pen out, ready. So obviously step 1 was drawing the circle. So step 2, what you're going to do is you are going to draw dots all the way around the circle, and then right at the top bit, about here, you're just going to do them a little bit further apart. So can you see that these are quite close together around here, all the way around, and then at the top here, it just gets a little bit further apart. And then for step 3, what you're going to do is you're going to draw some dots in sort of a semicircle, like a moon shape, and this will give you a guide of where you are going to fill your dots in for the next step. So if you just pause the video and get those steps down, and then we'll go on to the next bit, which is step 4. Sorry, I did that a bit quickly there. So pause the video if you've not had a chance to do that. So for step 4, what you are going to start to do is you are going to start to add your dots around this bit, just up to your line. And here you can see I just went over it again. So I did dots like this, quite close together, and then I went over it again and made them even closer together. And you see that between the two, this one gets a lot darker because I've put the dots closer together. So if you pause the video again, give yourself some time to do those dots. Now on step 5, again, you're just going to build up the dots again. So it's the same sort of technique. You do the dots and then you're going to go over them again, and eventually all of this part will just be filled with dots. It's just good to give yourself a little border so you know where you're doing your dots up to. So do them first hand, have a look, and then add some more in. The closer they are together, the darker that they'll be. Okay, so again, pause the video, give yourself some time to do that one. So step 6, adding more dots. So here I've just done it up to here because you've got to have patience when you're doing stippling, because it will just take you some time because you are just doing dots. It'll take a bit of time. So as you can see, I've gone all the way up to the line here, and I'm just building up my dots all the way up to the front bit. And then on step 7, you can see that I've reached the line here and there's lots and lots of dots in there. If you want to go back over them, that's absolutely fine. So again, if you pause the video before we get to step 8. And so on step 8, what I've done is I wanted to add a little bit more because I didn't want all of this to be the shading. See that I've drawn my lines. I went a bit wrong there, but that's fine. I've just drawn my line again, my little border, so I know where I'm going up to. And the next one, you're going to fill in these dots again. But it just gives you a little perimeter of where to go to. So step 9 and 10. So step 9, I'm just doing the same as I did before. I'm filling in the dots here up to my new perimeter. And it's, as you can see at the bottom, they are quite close together, which shows you that it's darker. And then as it goes up, they get a little bit further apart, because that's how you're going to show your depth. You're going to show the shading at the bottom is where the dots are closer together. So like if you were doing shading with colouring in, you might colour in a bit darker and a bit harder, and then go a bit lighter to show the gradient. So the gradient is where it goes from dark up to light very gradually. And then on step 10, so again, pause the video if you need to catch up, rewind at all if you need to go back over the steps. So step 10, here you can see where my the blank space was. What I've just done is I've added some dots very spaced apart. So here you can see they're really close together, and then as I go up they get further and further apart until you've just got a few here and there, so that it correlates, so it's the same as at the top of your circle where they're sort of further apart. So that shouldn't take too long if you just do a bit of dots. And now what we're going to do is we're going to add a few more dots. So we'll go on to step 11, and I've just added a few more dots into my blank space here, and then I'm going to go on to step 11. So what I've done is I've done my basic dots, and then what I'm going to do is I want to go back into it and add more depth to it. So as you can see around this edge, what I have done is I've done lots more dots. So I've just gone over, I started right around the edge, and you see that it doesn't go all the way up here, it's just around this bit. So you just go over it until you've got hardly any white space, and then you're just going to do sort of a little rim around the edge of lots of little dots. And then again, the further you go up, the more spaced out they are to show that kind of the lightness of the circle, because you want to show the curve of the sphere. So give yourself some time to do that. Pause the video again so that you can get your darker layer of dots, and then we'll have a look at the final steps. Right, so on our final step, I'm adding my dots further in. So I'll just pop back to the other one. So as you can see here, it's really defined around the edge of my sphere. And then on the next step, I've just brought the dots in a little bit more. So I've gone a bit further, going over my dots. And as you can see, they're really, really close together, and they make that really dark look to the circle. And then here they're a lot more spaced out, and then here it's basically the same, but you can just see how compared to here and here there's just a few more dots closer together. So again, you've got to have a lot of patience for this. It will take you a long time, but just give yourself that time because you'll need it. And then I've just added a few more dots around this bit, but this bit I've kept the dots quite sparse, so they're quite far apart, because that shows that my light is coming down this way, and this part of the sphere is lit up, whereas this part is darker. So you can see, like I said before, the gradient, how it gradually goes from light all the way down, getting darker and darker until it's really dark. And it's kind of up to you. This is where you need to use your artist brain, and you need to decide when you think that your picture is ready, when you think it's finished, because you can keep adding to this and make it a bit darker around here. It's kind of up to you where you kind of go darker. So I'd say that's about a third of the way. And remember, it's a bit like a moon shape, and then it gets further and further apart until there's only just a few dots to show that this bit's really, really light. So if we go on to so again, pause the video and have some time to finish off your shading with the dots. And then your final step, so the final thing, wait until, so I would say once you've finished your dots, wait about 5 minutes to make sure that they've dried, and then get your rubber and you're going to rub out your pencil line, your circle, so that you've just got the dots left. And if you put your piece of paper, if you stick it to the wall, or if you just put it up against the wall and walk really far away from it, that's when you're really going to see the effect of the dots and how they create that shading and make it look like it's 3D. So when it's quite close up, you're not going to see the effect as well, but if you move all the way back, you'll see that really, really well. And so that's the technique of stippling. So it's just using lots and lots of dots to create that shading, rather than colouring it in and creating that gradient shape so that it looks like it's 3D, so it's got a big curve on it. So now you know how to do your shading using dots. So the darker you want your shading to be, the more dots you are going to do, the closer together they are. So let me just make this a bit bigger and see. So if you look down here, those dots are really, really close together. You could even do it even closer together, and as you slowly go up, they get further and further apart until you get to that top bit where they're quite far apart, aren't they? And that shows where the light is there. So if you've not finished yet, just give yourself some time, pause the video, give yourself some time, and then your next step is to try and draw a simple picture using the stippling technique. So here you've got an apple, so they've drawn a solid line. You don't have to draw a solid line, you could do stippling around the edge as well, but if you want to, you can draw a solid line. And as you can see, where it's at the bottom, you've got all those dots really close together, and then it gets further and further apart, and then it just shows where there's going to be those indents on the apple. So you can have a go at drawing your own apple, or you could do a banana, you could even try doing a face. You just have to remember where there's shading or where there's darker lines, you need to put those dots really nice and close together, and you just have to keep going over and have that patience to do that. And what I want you to do is, when you've finished your sphere, I want you to see if you can take a picture of that and email it to Miss Frost, so that me and Miss Frost can have a look at them on your Year 6 email. And then if you have a chance, I would love it if you had a go at making your own picture and show that to Miss Frost. And when we're finally back at school, you can come and show that picture to us as well, and we can stick it up in our classroom to show how we've learnt that technique. Okay, thank you guys. I hope you have a lovely art lesson.